Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I wanted to do something that we've done with APHA, which is to provide travel stipends for students. I'm going to be giving one away, and I know TLDR Pharmacy, if you're on their email list, will be giving one away. If you've never gotten anything from TLDR, I'd go to their website, tldrpharmacy.com, and then I think they give you some free resources if you go over there. But I'm giving one away for $340, and I know that Brandon Dyson and that group over there is giving one away too. For mine, it's just number of Facebook likes between now and, let's see, so the 5th and Friday the 12th. Let me make sure that is right, that is a Friday, yeah. So whoever puts up, why I should, get a stipend to ASHP's MidYear, you can just have to be a P1, P2, P3, or P4 student going to MidYear. And whether or not your school gives you a stipend, you can still win it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to write an essay. You just have to put a couple of sentences. Hey, I think I should get it because I'm such and such. And then have your friends, whoever, like it on the specific Facebook post that I just put up. So that's as straightforward as I can get with that. But you'll hear from me and Brandon this week, kind of giving you some tips about the residency floor. It is madness. It's 9 or 10,000 people that you're in there with, and some do's and don'ts. But we keep it lively. Both of us are parents. Both of us are pharmacists committed to helping you guys. And again, just want to see if residency is something that you want. We want to make sure that money doesn't get in the way. So as far as actually knowing what to do with the match and kind of some advice beforehand, TLDR does have the How to Master the Match, and I'll put that in the show notes or that link. But I think it's one of the best cheat sheets that you can get. And if you are on their email list, I think you get the residency job interview evaluation form free too. So, I think the deadline for early bird registration is October 18th. That's why I want to make sure we get this out there by the 12th. Okay, so let's start with MedEd 101, his blog, talking about Thrill of the Case, which is his newest book, and that's got a ton of cases. You can still get pharmacotherapy free if you've never been on Audible before. You just go to audible.com, put in pharmacotherapy. It's the only pharmacotherapy audiobook there. And if that doesn't work, because maybe you have Audible, I think that you can actually go to Audible UK or Audible AU, which is the UK or Australian sites, and you may be able to sign up there and get one free. But I think if you go there, you would have to listen to it on your desktop. I'm just not sure about that. But definitely check out Thrill of the Case from meded101.com, Eric Christensen. Real Life Pharmacology podcast, so mirtazapine pharmacology is his most recent one, but more in general, 7 to 14 minutes is what he usually goes each week, and he's very consistent with that. He talks about pharmacology, last time he talked about SNRIs, the time before that, tricyclic antidepressant pharmacology, so really an easy way every week to keep up with just a little tidbit from pharmacology from a person that's been doing it long-term care for about 10 years. The mothership, the Pharmacy Podcast Network. So we'll start with October 1st, so the Pharmacy Inspection Podcast, so compounding design theory. And Brian and Seth talk about how you really design certain things within the compounding pharmacy, and there really is an art to it. And if that's your thing, compounding, then definitely listen to those guys. The Medical Podcast, Todd Urey talked with the co-founder of Imbue Botanicals and kind of understanding CBD oils. And I'm not a clinical pharmacist, but it's certainly something to check out. Moving Beyond the Doubt, RX Buzz. So Ashley Cleven Hayes interviews Blair Thielemeyer. And if you've not heard Blair's story, it's pretty amazing. Just an absolutely back against the wall financially. Things were just not going well to one of the leading entrepreneurs in pharmacy. But definitely check it out, Moving Beyond the Doubt on the RX Buzz podcast within the Pharmacy Podcast Network. And then Keeping in Compliance When Terminating Employees, Becky Templeton, Jeff Hedges. It's always a little bit dicey when somebody gets let go. And I remember when, I had just had enough of overnights. I wanted to go to days. That just wasn't something that they could do or wanted to do. And it was kind of a standoff. And it's like, we're not firing you. You're quitting. And I was like, yeah, these are my choices. I stick with the overnights, or I left, and I just left, and I was just done with it. But if you're in a position where you have to terminate someone, you definitely want to listen to that podcast episode. Happy PharmD, didn't say anything newer, but if you hadn't had a time to check it out, I definitely recommend From Feeling Overwhelmed to Feeling in Alignment with Her Values. So he talks a little bit about the coaching and, kind of how to make sure that what you're doing matches what you want to do. Healthcare Scholar magazine. So James Kong was on here before, a while back. He's a University of Texas guy. And it's really bringing together pharmacists, physicians, nurses, but the healthcarescholar.com, definitely checking out. They've got their first magazine episode out, and then you can I think you can sign up on their list to make sure that you get the next one. Podcast I just learned about. I didn't know about it, but the Two Pills podcast. Lauren Gorey's the host of it, and I think she works in Colorado, I believe, but she's with the University of Wyoming, and she's got a lot of good stuff in there, especially if you're a student. Some great tips on succeeding in pharmacy school, but also some names that you'll know. For example, Tim Ulbrich, I know, was one of the interviewees on there talking about finances and things like that. So definitely check out the Two Pills podcast. It's also on iTunes. YFP had a couple good episodes. So Rapid Fire Home Buying Q&A with I always forget his name. It's like the realtor. It can't be realtor because that's copyrighted, but it's the real estate RPH or something like that. But those are really good. Like, there's so many questions that you have, and you feel like you really don't want to have to ask your real estate agent question after question after question. They'll probably answer a ton of those questions with their last, I want to say it was 4 episodes. It took a month. So 6 Steps to Home Buying, Part 1 and 2 with Nate Hedrick, the Real Estate RPH, then 10 Home Buying Lessons Learned, then Rapid Fire Home Buying Q&A, and then the Pros and Cons of Dave Ramsey's 7 Baby Steps. So if you're someone who's got student loan debt or just debt in general, these guys are great to listen to, and I know they give good advice. RX Radio, Dr. Richard Waite, he had an opioid, I want to say it was about the opioid crisis, right? So fighting the opioid crisis with blockchain and cannabis, and these last couple of episodes have just been awesome. So the opioid crisis, the new independent opens up, and then pharmacists in big tech. 3 really, I don't want to say non-traditional, but just these are the types of things you will not see in pharmacy school. Blockchain, high-end technology, forefront of technology. How do you form an independent pharmacy that's going to work in this environment? So some real practical tips from the last 3 episodes from RX Radio. And he gets about as many downloads as I do, where I'm getting around, I want to say, 700 or 800 per episode. And then, the bigger ones, 1,000, 2,000 or whatever. So we're right around the same in terms of listenership. Talk to Your Pharmacist podcast. On her website, you're going to see the versatility of a PharmD with student pharmacist Shanice Anderson. But if you are on iTunes, you're going to see that she had a live episode. But always like to hear Hillary Blackburn. She's always got some great advice, great interviews as well. Really neat episode coming out of Kevin Yee, and you just put in Kevin Yee pharmacist in YouTube. And the question was, should I go to pharmacy school or become a full-time vlogger? And it's an hour and a half long, but I would listen to a couple minutes of it. I think it's pretty fascinating how you're like, well, should I go through this very traditional role or this very non-traditional role? And should I kind of dig into it? What should I do? And I just thought it was kind of cool that I'm old, like I'm going to be 47 here next year, and just kind of seeing like, well, back in the day it would have been, do you want to be a pharmacist or a physician? But, do you want to be a pharmacist or a vlogger? I just thought that was pretty cool. But he had just met her, I want to say, a couple of hours before on IG, on Instagram, and they just kind of said, all right, well, let's do this episode. Let's talk through it, and let's kind of give the people out there an idea of what you should and shouldn't be doing. Okay? And then I think hers is Fabiola Suarez is her website. You can kind of check out what she's been doing on YouTube. Brian Fung has had a really good set of Mentorship Mondays. He kind of gets you through one specific, I don't want to say goal, one specific aspect. It was lifelong learning, work ethic, and just always a good teacher. I love listening to his vlogs on YouTube. Paul Tran, what's up, man? It's been a month. So haven't seen much from him, but always gets, if you haven't seen his stuff, he's got some great videos, especially when you're talking about, he's got a DIY channel, so Paul Tran DIY, if you want to see how someone who's a pharmacist does something completely different. Or you can put in Paul Tran pharmacist, and he talks about Amazon, he talks about getting a hospital job without a residency, and some other really cool things. So, but anyway, that's it for the weekend. This episode will go up, and then start liking on the Facebook post, and then we will announce our winner here on Friday, October 12th, and if it hits, I can throw another stipend in there. I just really don't know. APHA, I know, is kind of segmented into these MRMs, and then they've got these very huge chapters and so forth with APHA, ASP. And I'm just kind of curious to see how well ASHP is connected within the schools. So hopefully you'll take advantage of it. Put your name up there if you're going to MidYear, and kind of go from there.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.